Very good evening to all our viewers. Today is the 13th of October 2021. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. For the News First team, I'm Myuki Portia. Before we head into stories in detail, let's start off with a look at
Teacher and principal trade unions demand complete salary increment. Trade union action to continue.
පිළියන 30ට වඩා ඕනතරම් නාස්තිකාර වියදම් රජයක් යට කරමින් ඉන්නේ. අපි දන්නවා මේ වෙනකොට දිස්ත්‍රික් සම්බන්ධීකරණ කමිටු වලට ඊට වඩා වැඩි මුදලක් දීලා තියෙනවා.
What will happen if teachers and principals continue to refrain from carrying out their duties?
වැඩ කළොත් පඩි ලැබෙයි, වැරුවොත් පඩි නොලැබෙයි.
Farmers deceived by authorities over fertilizer.
රසායනික පොහොර ටිකක්වත් අපිට ඇමතුමා මේ වෙනකොට කාබනික පොහොරල්
ප්‍රශ්න දින සභාපතිතුමා අපි දැන් කතා කරත් රසායනික අපිට ගේන්න කාලයක් නැහැ. ඒකට තව මාස දෙකක් යනවා රසායනික අපිට ගේන්න.
Indian and Sri Lankan militaries should be modernized. A proposition from the Indian Army Chief. Sri Lankan music sensation Johanni returns from India tour.
Starting off with your top story for tonight, Sri Lankan singing sensation Johanni De Silva has returned from a tour of India. Johanni De Silva reached Sri Lanka at around 11:25 last night on Sri Lankan Airlines flight UL-144. She was welcomed at the Bandaranaike International Airport.
ඔබගේ ජනප්‍රිය හරහා දේශපාලනයට එන්නේ නේද?
නෑ. අනිවාර්යෙන් නෑ. මම ආටිස්ට් කෙනෙක්. ඒ මට ඇති.
The singer was provided a special security detail as she left the airport. Johanni De Silva rose to stardom after her rendition of the Manike Magehite song went viral, especially in India. She participated in her first international concert in India's capital New Delhi recently. During her 2-week stay, Johanni was chosen to sing the female version of a Hindi title song in a Bollywood film. She also attended the Big Boss television entertainment program as a special guest and shared the stage with Bollywood actor Salman Khan.
You want to do the song with me?
Yeah.
Manike Magehite
Manike Magehite
Mudue Nura Hangum Yavi Sihidevi
Sridevi.
Johanni's rendition of the Manike Magehite song has been viewed more than 150 million times on YouTube.
Avi Levi Ma Italaga Madavatena Guru Premaka Patalena Vanari Manahari Sukumali Nubatama.
Meanwhile, speaking at a media briefing today, Johanni Silva expressed the following views.
රටවල් ගොඩකින් ආරාධනා ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. ලොකු සපෝට් එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා මගේ දෙමාපියන්ගෙන්. ඒකට මම ගොඩක් ගරු කරනවා. මං කියන්නේ පරාජය බාර ගන්න සූදානම් වෙලා ඉන්න කොයි වෙලේ. එතනින් ඉදිරියට යන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැහැ. ඉදිරියේදී වෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා හැබැයි. ඇත්තටම මොකද උනේ? ඇත්තටම ගිටාර් එක මූණ වැදුන එක උනේ. දැන් නම් ඒක යම් තාක් දුරට හරි. මගේ ගිටාර් එක මගේ මෙයාගේ ගිටාර් එක නෙමෙයි ගොඩක් අය හිතන්නේ ෂෙරාන්ගේ ගිටාර් එක වැදුනා කියලා. නෑ මම මගේ ගිටාර් එකම වැද්දගත්තා මූණේ. ඒක තමයි උනේ.
Teachers, principal trade unions have decided to continue their trade union action until their salaries are increased at once.
If they are going to implement the decisions made at the cabinet, there is no point in having a discussion. We have requested, based on the recommendations of the Subodhani committee, that the allowance for the year 2018 should be provided at once. All the trade unions in the teachers' principal trade unions expressed their opinions and requested this to be implemented in this manner. In the end, the Minister of Education said that this will be provided in 2 phases. During the first phase, 1/3 of the recommended allowance, the balance in the year 2023. We cannot accept this at all. Today, our trade unions decided to continue the trade union action. On the 21st, schools with less than 200 students will open. We are further discussing whether to report to work or not. We will make our decision and notify it in the coming weeks.
What has the government given us? They gave us a Subodhini committee report. The cabinet rejected the Subodhini committee report. The proposal presented by the government is getting rejected by the government itself. So why are they presenting such useless proposals? It's even a waste of paper and also a waste of time. The government is deceiving us. We are not accepting their fraudulent solutions.
If they stay silent during the meeting with the Prime Minister and come out and announce that they do not agree with the government stance, it is not ethical. The trade union leaders are opportunistic. They are not flexible as well. The general public must not pay attention to the trade union leaders with political agendas. Instead, they must focus on their children's future. They did not even get a discussion. They got one finally only after I intervened. If they report to work, they will get their salaries. If not, they won't receive it. If they work, they will get paid. If not, they will not. The Minister of Education must have a backbone. I would like to inform the Educational Secretary to work without being influenced. He should implement the policies and be firm. He must not be influenced by anyone.
මේක මෑත කාලේ තිබෙන දුෂ්කර ආර්ථික මූල්‍යමය අර්බුදය හරහා වැදගත්.
This is a decision taken amidst the biggest economical and financial challenge witnessed in recent years. This will be further explained by the Minister of Finance during the budget speech on the 12th of November. Many factions will point out the mistakes of this decision, but it is our responsibility to educate our children. The Prime Minister pledged to protect the rights of teachers at temple trees. As past school students, we must ensure this right for future generations.
Minister Gunawardena expressed these views while speaking at an event to commemorate the 137th birth anniversary of Dr. C.W.W. Kannangara, who is regarded as the father of free education in Sri Lanka. The event was held at the C.W.W. Kannangara Memorial in Lulbadduwa, Matugama. Is the government suffering from a lack of funds to satisfy the demands of teachers?
We urge the government to make a decision on this by next week. It was the Secretary to the Treasury and the Budget Director General who impeded our discussion, which we held for over 3.5 hours. We know this process will only cost 30 billion rupees. We are aware of the government's wasteful acts. District coordination committees have been allocated more money than what it takes to resolve this matter.
Issuing a statement earlier today, the Ministry of Agriculture announced that 30,000 metric tons of organic potassium chloride fertilizer were imported to the country today. Now, the ministry said that stocks of fertilizer will be immediately dispatched to agrarian development centers in Ampara, Batiklo, Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, Kurunegala, Putlam, Trincomalee and Hambantota to supplement Mahasesan cultivations, which are set to commence in 2 days. Now, speaking in Parliament recently, Minister of Agriculture Mahindananda Alutgamage said farmers will receive organic fertilizer today. However, farming communities across the island lamented during the day that they had not received stocks of fertilizer today as promised.
We are discussing with India to import nano-nitrogen. If there are delays, we will bring them down on an air freight. Therefore, we will distribute fertilizer without any shortage during the Maha season. Farmers were hopeful to receive the fertilizer as promised by the subject minister in Parliament. Those in Ampara gathered in the area to collect fertilizer today. However, They returned home empty-handed. What he does is lie. So Minister, please don't say that you are going to give fertilizer to a certain agrarian center in Ampara, because you might say the lorry had broken down in the evening. The minister had not sent any fertilizer, nor has he visited here. There is no fertilizer here as well. We don't know how long it will take to resolve the issue.
Farmers of 41 organizations under the Alahara Farmers Movement in Polonnaruwa staged a protest in Bakamuna today. A demonstration organized by farmers was also held in Mandala Junction in Ambalantota today. A protest highlighting the fertilizer shortage organized by the farmers of Mapakada Badulla was held at the Mapakada paddy field today.
මල්පොච්චයක් නේ ගොම ටික කාබනික වලින් වගා කරන්න. මේ මුළු එල්ලයකට කොම්පෝස්ට් මං හිතන්නේ කන්ටේනර් ලක්ෂ ගාණක් ගෙනාවත් මේක වැඩක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මේ හරක්ට තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. මෙලට ගොවියගේ ප්‍රශ්නේ. මේ තියන්නේ කාබනික බෝර මේ වෙලේ තියන්නේ. මේවා මුගේ මූලේ ගෑවත් අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් මේවා හොඳයි කියලා. අයියෝ.
A protest demanding fertilizer was organized by farmers of Yapagama, Siambalawava in Dambulla today at a cabbage patch. 14 farmers' organizations at the Mahaveli zone in Mayurapura, Hamatota engaged in a protest in Katuwava today.
මේවයින් අද වෙනකොට අපිට බෑ 1 රුපියල් 50ක් ගන්න මේ කෙහෙ කන සුප්‍රීම මට්ටමට පැවුණා. මේව තියෙන්නේ මෙන්න මේ මහ පොළවේ ගහන්න විසක් නැතුව මේව කන්න නෙවෙයි. මේව තියෙන පොළවේ ගහන්න. භාවිය දනකලා.
Members of 225 farmers' organizations in the Anuradhapura district are demanding fertilizer and pesticides. 67,000 families in the Mahaveli H zone cultivate 25,000 acres of paddy fields every year. They say fertilizer. Farmers contacted Agriculture Minister Mahinda Nanda Alutgamage asking for a solution.
Can I speak to the Honorable Minister? I am the President of the Mahaveli H zone. We have not received water or fertilizer yet.
As I said before, we have been sending fertilizer since yesterday. The fertilizer must have come to Polonnaruwa by the 1st of November. By next Monday, all farmers' organizations and agrarian centers will receive fertilizer.
කාබනික පොර මේ වෙනකොට කට්ටියගේ 100%ක් සාර්ථක කරලා නැහැ මතුමා. මේ කතා කරලා වාර්තා
We are giving nitrogen fertilizer as well. The ship carrying potassium has come and it will be unloaded today. Apart from that, a ship with nitrogen fertilizer will arrive as well. You will receive all the chemical fertilizer you need on board these ships. The problem is that we don't have time to bring chemical fertilizer. It will take 2 months to bring chemical fertilizer. The farmers asked for fertilizer. It will be given to farmers.
Minister, we accept the fact that it can't be brought down. But the bottle of oil that we bought from shops for 2,000 rupees is priced at 6 to 7,000 rupees now.
Members of the ruling party have requested the president to reconsider his stance on organic fertilizer.
The issue is that we try to switch from chemical to organic within just one season. We usually sow 8 hectares of paddy. This has gone down to 6.5 because farmers have already reduced the volumes. We kindly request the president to reconsider his decision and make this transformation from chemical to organic in a more practical time frame, or else we will have to face consequences. We will import a separate fertilizer for tea. It is a chemical fertilizer. We will import chemical fertilizer to provide a solution to the woes of the tea plantation community. Some people assume that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's stance regarding chemical fertilizer is written in stone. No, he is elected by the people. Many people have requested us to take some time into this transition. We have not given up our cause.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa visited farmers today as well. He met with tea cultivators in Mabotuwana in Gaul.
We need fertilizer to cultivate these crops. Please take control of this country and feed the people. Grant them relief. Create a country in which we can live. I feel sad listening to the complaints of the people. Tea cultivations have failed as the government is acting without understanding the people's problems due to its inability. Tea crops need nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium to grow. Even a child knows that. But the plantations minister and the government doesn't know that. The quality of our tea will reduce without fertilizer. What will happen? Countries like Kenya and China will capture our place in the market. Regaining that place is not easy.
We apologize for the error witnessed earlier where Minister of Agriculture Mahindanand Alutgamage was identified incorrectly as Minister Dinesh Gunawardena. Taking a look at more news, Sri Lanka's 2021 economic growth projection has been downgraded by, or rather to 3.6% by the International Monetary Fund in its latest economic outlook from an earlier 4%, while global growth has also been lowered slightly.
The effects of the Powell bubble on energy and food prices, while the country's price to earnings to growth with the US dollar has also broken, amplifying its effects. Geeta Gopinath, chief economist for the IMF, said, quote, monetary policies will need to walk a fine line between tackling inflation and fiscal risks and supporting the economic recovery, end quote. She added, quote, we project amid high uncertainty that headline inflation will likely return to pre-pandemic levels by mid-2022 for the group of advanced economies and emerging and developed economies, end quote. Meanwhile, the IMF did not mince its words in its latest outlook for the global economy released yesterday, warning that the threats to the economic recovery from last year's COVID-19 disruptions are growing, along with a dangerous divergence between richer and poorer countries. The IMF revised its headline forecast for global growth this year down slightly by 0.1% to 5.9%, while leaving its projections for 2022 unchanged at 4.9%. The IMF said, quote, the outlook for the low-income developing country group has darkened considerably due to worsening pandemic dynamics, end quote. IMF chief economist Geeta Gopinath elaborated on those pandemic dynamics, saying that global supply shortage in the face of resurgent demands are triggering commodity price inflations that is being passed on to the consumer.
Supply disruptions pose another policy challenge. On the one hand, pandemic outbreaks and climate disruptions have resulted in shortages of key inputs and lowered manufacturing activity in several countries. On the other hand, these supply shortages, alongside the release of pent-up demand and the rebound in commodity prices, have caused consumer price inflation to increase rapidly in many countries. Food prices have increased the most in low-income countries where food insecurity is most acute, adding to the burdens of poorer households and raising the risk of social unrest.
The Chief of the Indian Army, General Manoj Mukund Naravana, who is in Sri Lanka today, stated that the militaries of Indo-Sri Lanka should be modernized in line with international standards to face various types of threats, including cyber attacks. Army Commander General Shavendra appreciated India for involving Indian troops in the development of military exercises and training models between the two countries.
Chief of Army Staff of the Indian Army, General Manoj Mukund Naravan, was greeted with a guard turnout and guard of honour upon his arrival at the Sri Lanka Army headquarters in Akuregoda, Battaramulla this morning. General Manoj Mukund held a discussion with General Shavendra Silva thereafter. During the meeting, both military chiefs had stressed on the importance of strengthening historic relations enjoyed by the two militaries. A joint media briefing was held after the discussion.
This is my first visit to Sri Lanka in my present capacity, but I have witnessed the strengthening relationships between the two militaries since my days as a junior leader when I was here as part of the IPKF. My visit also coincides with the ongoing India-Sri Lanka joint bilateral military exercise Mitra Shakti, which is the largest bilateral exercise being undertaken between us. These exercises form a major part of India and Sri Lanka's growing defence relationship. As mature democracies, the quality interaction between the elected leaders of both countries is mirrored by similar interactions between our two militaries.
We afforded a traditional welcome to the Chief of Army Staff of the Indian Army and engaged in cordial relations on improving our relationship further. Over the course of history, India has supported us in many ways, including providing assistance through training. Even at present, the Mitra Shakti training exercise is being held in Ampara and Maduroya. We will both be attending the final exercise of it.
General Manoj Mukund Naravan also paid floral tributes to the Indian Peacekeeping Force Memorial situated at the Apegama premises in Battaramulla.
50 officers based on a request by his Sri Lankan counterpart.
Meanwhile, Subramaniam Swamy, a senior leader of India's Bharatiya Janata Party and a member of the Rajya Sabha, met with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today. The president has said he was happy to meet him during his visit. Meanwhile, Subramaniam Swamy also engaged in religious observances at the Mayurapati Sri Bhadrakali Amman Kovil in Vellavatta. He expressed the following views to Newsfirst on the country's administration. We are not worried as long as Mahinda Rajapaksa is in power. He understands that no one must live in grief. It is the Indian government's responsibility to support a brotherly nation like Sri Lanka. It's not good to question all moves. We don't have the power to do that either. If we remain a country that supports another in brotherhood, everyone will appreciate it. That is what India wants.
The India
Newsfirst inquired about the 13th Amendment and the Provincial Council system as well. We are studying that. I will be coming here again. I will then inquire whether there is any progress. The Indian Foreign Secretary has also discussed that during his visit.
External Affairs Ministry or secretaries
Meanwhile, Subramaniam Swamy also attended a Navaratri Puja hosted by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's family at the temple trees last night. BJP stalwart Subramaniam Swamy also met with Fisheries Minister Douglas Devananda and members of the Ceylon Workers' Congress. He had discussed issues of fishermen in India and Sri Lanka and development projects in the upcountry.
Bharatiya Janata Party MP Subramanian Swamy has reiterated to Minister Dalasalaha Peruma that the use of trawlers which destroy precious marine resources must be banned immediately. According to the statement issued by the Fisheries Ministry, Subramanian Swamy has understood the plight of fishermen in the north who are affected by illegal actions carried out by Indian fishermen. The statement further added that Subramanian Swamy has agreed to garner attention of Indian leaders regarding the activities carried out by Indian fishermen.
Meanwhile, fishing unions in Jaffna convened a media briefing today.
Last night, fishing organizations and state leaders met with Indian diplomats. According to those diplomats, our fishermen and minister cannot do anything. That is what they are saying. We are not getting a solution to this issue from any institution. We mentioned the damage caused by Indian trawlers. They said that a solution cannot be given. They can only inform of this issue to their superiors. Other than that, they cannot do anything. Even our fisheries minister cannot do anything.
In more local news, Minister of Foreign Affairs Professor G.L. Piris told foreign envoys today that Sri Lanka is open to face challenges in the international arena pertaining to human rights.
The newly appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs addressed all foreign envoys for the first time today. Speaking at the briefing, the minister assured that the government will engage sincerely with representatives of civil societies and international institutions, including the United Nations, over concerns regarding human rights. The minister also stressed that the continued provisions of the GSP Plus concession is vital for the progress of Sri Lanka's economy, from international stakeholders.
In my own interactions with them, I made it clear that GSP Plus is a facility which is needed today, not so much by the government of Sri Lanka, but by the most vulnerable segments of the population of Sri Lanka. I would say, if you ask me, that has revolutionized the social system of Sri Lanka much more than any other single initiative has done in the recent past. Of course, GSP Plus is not a gift. It has to be earned. And the yardstick is compliance with obligations that have been voluntarily undertaken under a variety of conventions, including the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and so on. But in all those areas, apart from human rights, there have been very extensive developments in other areas.
The High Court has ordered the prison superintendent to produce former Governor Azad Sali at the appeal court on the 25th of this month. The order was issued by High Court Judge Amal Ranaraja after considering a request by President's Counsel Maitri Gunaratna. The Attorney General has filed charges against the former governor over his remarks at a media briefing on the 9th of March. Meanwhile, the Attorney General's Department has informed the appeal court it will not proceed with the charges against former Navy Commander, Admiral of the Fleet Vasantha Karannagoda. The suspect was charged with 12 others at the Permanent High Court trial at Bar for the abduction and enforced disappearance of 11 youth from Colombo between 2008 and 2009. Senior State Counsel Johanni Vikrama told court the Attorney General has decided to re-examine the charges filed against the suspects. The Permanent High Court trial at Bar had questioned whether the Attorney General had filed charges against the suspects, including Navy spokesperson DKP Dasanayaka, without examining evidence. The case is to be taken up again on the 3rd of December. Meanwhile, the families of 4 youths have filed a writ petition with the appeal court to invalidate the Attorney General's decision to drop the charges against Vasantha Karannagoda. Up next is Crime Watch.
Crime Watch.
A body with a duct tape around its mouth was discovered from the banks of Ma Oya in Thulhiriya, Varakapula earlier today. Authorities were informed of the corpse by an individual travelling through the area. The magisterial inquest on the remains was conducted by Magistrate Bhuvanika Rajakaruna. Orders to hand over to the body to the Judicial Medical Officer of Kegol was given thereafter. The deceased was a 43-year-old resident of the Panvilla Police Division.
Crime Watch.
Speaking at a meeting held with the participation of the 3 newly appointed female DIGs of police and 12 female ASPs, Minister of Public Security retired Rear Admiral Dr. Sarath Veerasekara has said that new laws are being drafted to prevent blackmail targeting women. The event took place on the 11th of October. During the meeting, the minister sought their suggestions to create a secure environment for women in domains such as public transport and workplaces. Responding to the minister, the female police officers had pointed out the lack of experience within the police force in terms of tackling cyber-related criminal activities. They had also highlighted the importance of creating awareness among women and children regarding cyber crimes. During the meeting, the minister had suggested that an informative video be made in order to create awareness among the masses on the matter.
අපිට ඔයගොල්ලන්ට හදන්න බැරිද පොඩි ක්ලිප් එකක් විනාඩියක ලස්සන ක්ලිප් එකක් හදන්න හරියද ඒක හදන්න ඕනේ එකක් තමයි අර බ්ලැක්මේල් කරන අයට පොඩි පණිවිඩයකුත් දෙන්න කොහොම හරි අපි ගාව තියෙනවා දැන් නවීන තාක්ෂණය තියෙනවා එහෙම කරලා බ්ලැක්මේල් කරපු හැටි අපිට කිව්ව හැටි ආ අපරාධකාරයව අල්ලගන්න පුළුවන් තාක්ෂණය තියෙන එකක් ගැන කියන්න ඕනේ දෙවෙනි එක තමයි අපේ දරුවන්ව දැනුවත් කරන්න ඕනේ මේ වලට අහු වෙන්න එපා කියලා.
The glass ceiling concept continues to be a challenge for women across the world as well as in Sri Lanka, even in the contemporary age. However, many women, including those here in Sri Lanka, have shattered the glass ceiling on numerous occasions over the years. The latest incident to that front was reported just last week when 3 women female SSPs were promoted to the rank of acting DIG at once for the first time in Sri Lanka Police's history. Now, in order to celebrate their monumental feat and to shed light on their success stories, we at Newsfirst have decided to invite the 3 newly appointed women DIGs to tonight's Kanta Satana program, which will air on TV1 straight after the news. Moving on, more than 50 years after his debut as the beloved Captain James T. Kirk in the original series of Star Trek, William Shatner is set to boldly go to the edge of space.
The 90-year-old actor is scheduled to launch aboard a rocket and capsule developed by Blue Origin, the private spaceflight company founded by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. If successful, the ride will make Shatner the oldest person to reach space. He said in a statement released earlier this month, quote, "I've heard about space for a long time now," end quote. William Shatner and 3 other crew members, Audrey Powers, Blue Origin's Vice President of Mission and Flight Operations, and 2 paying customers, will ride Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket and capsule to the edge of space.
Members of the G20 group of major economies have pledged to avert an economic catastrophe in Afghanistan.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the country should not be allowed to descend into chaos. The virtual summit came as the United Nations urged world leaders to put billions of dollars into the Afghan economy. US President Joe Biden stressed that aid should be provided via independent international organizations and not directly to the ruling Taliban. But so far the money forthcoming has largely been counted in millions just to provide emergency food and medicine. Pledges include a promise by European Commission President to give £1 billion to Afghanistan and to neighbouring countries taking in refugees.
Moving on, the International Energy Agency has said that investment in renewable energy needs to triple by the end of the decade if the world hopes to effectively fight climate change and keep volatile energy markets under control.
The International Energy Agency said in its annual World Energy Outlook released yesterday, the world is not investing enough to meet its future energy needs. Transition-related spending is gradually picking up, but remains far short of what is required to meet rising demand for energy services in a sustainable way. It added, clear signals and direction from policymakers are essential. If the road ahead is paved only with good intentions, then it will be a bumpy ride indeed. The Paris-based watchdog released its annual World Energy Outlook early this year to guide the United Nations COP26 climate change conference starting later this month. It called the upcoming meeting in Glasgow, Scotland, the first test of the readiness of countries to submit new and more ambitious commitments under the 2015 Paris Agreement, and an opportunity to provide an unmistakable signal that accelerates the transition to clean energy worldwide.
Workers in the United States are quitting their jobs at a record pace. The latest job openings and labor turnover survey from the U.S. Labor Department showed that the number of Americans quitting their jobs jumped to 4.3 million in August. And that is 2.9% of all employed workers in the U.S., marked quits rate on record.
Meanwhile, the number of job openings in the US fell slightly to 10.4 million in August, but that follows on from July, which saw a record 11.1 million jobs go begging. A high quits rate normally signals how confident American workers feel about their job prospects, but a deeper dive into data suggests that fear of contracting the Delta variant of COVID-19 could also be driving workers onto the sidelines. Some 892,000 workers in the customer-facing accommodation and food services sectors quit their jobs amid an August surge in COVID cases. That's 157,000 more than the previous month. The number of people walking off the job and the sheer number of job vacancies.
Today marks the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. The national event organized by the Disaster Management Center was held in Colombo today on COVID-19 and systemic risks.
Observed annually on the 13th of October, the day marks how individuals are raising awareness about the importance of reining in the risks they face, as well as reducing their exposure to disasters. Defence Secretary Major General Kamal Gunaratne was the chief guest of the event. Director General of the Disaster Management Centre Major General Sudanta Ranasinghe, Deputy Director General of the Public Health Services Dr. Hemantha Herath and several other local and international experts attended the hybrid event.
The current effort on fighting COVID-19 cannot conceal the fact of climatic and geological hazards on street. Hence, whilst actively responding to the pandemic, we also need to prepare for and implement actions to mitigate the potential impact of all the hazards.
The overall goal of the commemoration is to provide an advocacy platform to highlight best practice examples of international cooperation which have a positive impact on the lives of people who live in disaster-prone parts of the world, reducing the numbers of people affected by man-made and natural hazards. Over 500 local and foreign delegates attended the event virtually. A panel discussion highlighted key challenges in the new normal era. The views and experiences shared by a renowned panel of local and overseas professionals and academics showcased Sri Lanka's efforts in strengthening international cooperation to transform learned lessons into effective mechanisms of regional collaboration in the face of systematic risks.
With that, it's a wrap of primetime news here on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I've been Miyuki Poshia, along with our sign language interpreter, Brian De Cruz via Zoom. Take care and good night.